Hello everyone and welcome to this video, which is in our Reengineering the Chess Classic series. I'm Grandmaster Matthew Sadler and I found another nice game of Sergio Mariotti for you. This time black against the Swiss grandmaster, I think, Werner Hug, played in the Nice Olympiad of 1974. The white player, Werner Hug, was in a way a slightly strange player. He won the World Junior Championship in a very strong field. Normally, World Junior Champions have always gone on to do really great things. And, he became a strong player, but somehow nothing exceptional, which, you might have thought from his early promise somehow. But he was a very good and very solid player. And, have a look at what Mariotti did to him. So let's have a look here. It was e4, knight c6. So Mariotti was black, of course, and he played knight c6 quite a lot. He was playing Chigorins around this time against 1d4. So 1e4, knight c6 was probably quite normal. But after knight f3, he transposed back to e5. And Tony Miles, great English player, was a big knight c6 player, but he experimented a lot with d6, which is the true Nimzowitsch opening, d4, knight f6, knight c3. But after a really bad loss against the Spanish grandmaster Miguel Illescas, he switched back to playing e5 and ended up playing the Berlin in actual fact, which I guess kind of suited his grinding style quite well. That wasn't for Mariotti though, and after bishop b5. Here he played the move bishop c5. Now, for a long time in his career, he played the move queen f6. And, I learned from Gerard Welling, Dutch international master, and an absolute treasure trove of information about offbeat lines, little-known players. This was recommended in a book by, I think it's a German player, Gunderam. And Mariotti followed a few of his suggestions in various openings. We'll see another one in a later video. And this was one of them. However, he didn't like this queen f6 system very much because of knight c3, which is quite understandable. The engines don't like it very much either. The threat of knight d5 sort of compels black to play knight ge7, which is not really that great, really, to block in the bishop like that. So Mariotti sort of refined the idea by playing bishop c5 first, and after castles, playing queen f6 then. Also, I think playing, after c3, playing queen f6 as well. What is the idea of queen f6? Let's just start with that. Well, I mean, one of the ideas is simply, obviously, the e5 pawn, always a bit of a problem in the Rye Lopez. White plays bishop b5 with the idea of taking there. I mean, you hold it together with tactics for a few moves, but at some stage you've got to decide what to do. And a lot of the the mainline Lopez lines, or the Steinitz, involve playing d6 and shutting in that bishop behind the pawn chain. So really, black's quite keen to move the bishop outside the pawn chain. The other thing about queen f6, and this is a move that Mariotti played a lot, including against Karpov, can you believe it, is to play the move g5 to g4. So, you're protecting the pawn on e5. You restrain d4 a little bit because the queen's attacking that square as well. And you're supporting a kingside advance with g5 to g4. And, in the right circumstances, it can prove very dangerous. Funnily enough, I've been playing the system with bishop c5 followed by queen f6 an awful lot in Blitz and Bullet. And, it's not a bad system at all. It's pretty interesting and, a lot of interesting points to it. So I'll try and share a few of the things I've discovered in this video. So bishop c5 was what Mariotti played, and white played castles. Black's got a number of ideas here. Torch, I think, likes d6. Stockfish likes the liquidating knight d4, quite typical, and only gives white a very small advantage. Another move that's possible is knight e7 as well, which I think has featured in some Stufi games in actual fact. But queen f6 is Mariotti's idea, of course. And now white has to make a decision. I mean, there's three basic moves, really, to cause black any problems. There's knight c3, looking for a quick knight d5, and then black plays knight g7. Knight d5 still quite interesting, but the engines think that black's sort of fine. There's another move, c3, which is quite interesting, with ideas of d4. Faces quite a lot in Blitz and Bullet. I mean, you play knight e7, and then white's got loads of things. I think rook e1 is probably the most challenging, just teeing up d4. But there's you have got some sharp ideas with d4 and then a quick e5 or rook e1 or bishop g5, quite a few of those ideas, but black seems to be doing quite all right in actual fact, which is kind of reassuring. If that sort of line is going fine, then you know, it can't be doing too badly. I will just point out that that after that Mariotti played against Karpov, he played this line with Karpov, and Karpov played b4 and knight a3. And can you guess what Mariotti replied? Yeah, Karpov had g5 to face. It's not a very good move, though. And actually, after d4, the engines give Karpov +2 already. But so it's not great. But yeah, I bet he just couldn't resist doing that against Karpov. But yeah, I mean, after knight a3, you can just go, for example, a6 and d6, and you're doing all right. No worries there with your position with black. So yeah, you know, it's quite a decent system. What Hug did was play the move d3, and I have to say, when I first saw it, when I first faced it, I sort of assumed it was nothing at all. But there's a surprising amount of venom in this idea. The first problem actually is that knight e7 looks really natural, right? Develop the knight, protect this one so you can recapture on c6. But here you get hit by bishop g5, and the really annoying thing is that if you play queen g6, there's simply this move bishop e7, and you always want to take back with a knight in these positions. But of course, taking back with a knight will lose the pawn to knight takes e5. I mean, you can sacrifice sometimes, you know, in these types of positions, but it's not great. And of course, bishop e7, I just played bishop takes c6, followed by knight e5. Black's got compensation with the bishops, but yeah, you know, it really is it's a plus pawn for white. So black's got a couple of moves. Black can play a6, which is the engine favourite, or you can play h6, which is Mariotti's move, which happens very often in this line. I mean, it stops bishop g5, of course, and allowing knight e7, and of course it's teeing up Mariotti's favourite move g5. I mean, I imagine that maybe Hug was aware of the type of player Mariotti was and decided, well, we're gonna stop it there. So bishop e3 was played by Hug, and yeah, I thought the engines actually quite like knight d4 in this position. It's quite risky, but Mariotti played the move bishop b6, which frankly looks, you know, very good, very solid somehow. And well, after Hug's knight c3, white had nothing in particular, and knight g7, and black was absolutely fine. I mean, pretty good opening, basically. What the engines point out in this line is the very interesting idea, which just hadn't occurred to me at all, which is the move c4, threatening to play the move c5 here. And, well, the engines suggest knight d4, bishop takes d4, bishop d4, takes. And now the subtle move bishop a4, not quite sure why you play it now. But after knight e7, then f4 and knight d2, and white is pleasantly better. You know, I mean, there was this weak square on d4, and black's occupied it with a pawn, so it's no longer exploitable. And white's got quite a nice kingside pawn structure here. You know, I mean, you can play at some stage, you know, even just f5, just to really stop a knight coming to g6, stop the bishop on c8 developing anywhere. It can also expand on the queen side as well. I mean, just white's got some quite nice potential somehow, and yeah, you know, the engines were winning a few games. Torch beat Stockfish, and Stockfish beat Torch from this position. So the assessment wasn't bananas, but you know, for white, but it was obviously quite a difficult position for black to hold. But after knight c3, knight g7, there's not much wrong with black's position, and this queen is just quite pleasantly placed. I mean, it's out of the way. It just means the rooks can be connected, and nothing wrong at all. So Hug was a very solid player, and he started sort of I guess swapping stuff off and trying to make the position maybe a bit clearer somehow, a bit less complicated. He played the move bishop takes b6, which normally speaking is not so amazing. And now he took on c6, so this is he's just trying to flatten out the position. Actually, I mean, the engines start preferring black, minus 0.59 actually, which is quite a lot after this move. Simply, I mean, black's got no problems. Their centre is strong, queenside structure's good, knight coming to g6, bishop to g4. The engines were still making draws as white in this position, but the engines would rather be black. Mariotti's move slightly unnatural in a way. D takes c6. I mean, if you get in c5, then you're reasonably happy. I mean, that's quite a good clamping structure, sort of Maroczy bindish somehow. But Hug played the move d4, and it looks basically like we've got some sort of typical exchange Rye Lopez where the queens are going to get exchanged. But Mariotti resisted. He didn't just play e takes d4 here. He played knight g6. And, bishop g4 feels like a threat somehow. So Hug took on e5, takes, queen takes e5. And, we've got this sort of typical position. Normally the pawn will be on a7 rather than b6. But, it's one of those positions that you see quite often in the exchange Rye Lopez, where white's got the 4 pawns on the kingside pawn majority, and black's got the double pawns, which in principle make it easier for white to create a pass pawn on the king side than it is for black to create a pass pawn on the queen side. However, the fact that these pawns are moving up like this, it means you can the pawns can move forwards and then others can cover squares as they move forwards. So those pawns are quite nice somehow. It's the positions are about balanced here. I mean, the engines don't particularly suggest anything amazing, I have to say, in the next few moves. Queen d2, bishop e6. Maybe a little risky, to put the bishop on there, in a way tempting f4 to f5 on. But if you go f4, then the engines were saying queen check, queen f2, and then f5, which is quite nice there. I mean, you can easily go wrong with both colours here in the endgame. So rook d1 was played by Hug, castles, and then a3. So just a little bit worried maybe about bishop takes a2 there, so just playing a3 to protect. And I mean, white's not doing anything in particular really, but his position's solid and there's no weaknesses, so nothing too bad can happen, you would have thought. Mariotti started to mix things up a bit, played the move f5. White's got to make a little decision here. I think that White's gone for the exchanging thing. He's sort of gone for a position where he's got a kingside pawn majority. It would have been the most consistent, I think, to play, certainly humanly speaking, to play a move like queen f2 and just swap off the queens, and then you head for the ending and you just say, okay, black's got a bishop, pawns on both sides. That's generally quite nice for black, but I've got my kingside pawn majority, and we'll try and get this one moving and see what we can do. I think that would have been the most consistent line. Hug played the move rook fe1, which is not bad according to the engines, but it does give Mariotti the chance to play the move f4 here, and threatening the move f3. The strange thing for me, at least, is that Hug was never really. He could have done it, before as well. Just offering the exchange of queens there, but he sort of doesn't really do that at all. And Mariotti comes up with a very nice plan of deploying his rooks to maximum effects. Very impressive. I hadn't seen. I'd sort of seen the first one coming. That's not too difficult. The second one I hadn't seen coming at all. So f3 was played, and now rook f6. That rook's coming round to g6, and we'll have bishop h3 in there. So queen d4 now, but queen g5. Too late. Mariotti's not going to swap off queens now. But, I mean, the threats don't look that amazing. Rook e2, rook g6. Okay, we're threatening g2. Or maybe have bishop h3, but it can all be covered somehow. And, yeah, you know, not doesn't look particularly difficult. Yeah, Hug played very cautiously here. He played the move queen f2. Just, yeah, protecting g2, stopping the queen coming to h4. Yeah, I guess just if bishop h3, just intending to move the king out of the way. Yeah, just a very cautious move somehow. It's not bad, but yeah, I don't know. You sort of think, yeah, you know, you feel like you're really, you know, giving black everything, and maybe the next move kind of shocked him because it was rook a5 from Mariotti. I hadn't seen that one coming. That rook is going to come right over to the king side and hit the g pawn. Again, you feel that White's got sufficient firepower there to deal with it, but still, I mean, you know, Mariotti's trying to do something with that. And after king h1, he just played queen h5, abandoning the d8 square, giving the 8th rank to White, but just freeing the g5 square to bring the rook in. And, you know, there will be threats of bishop h3, so it's a bit of a question really about how much counterplay can White try to go for. Yeah, there's going to be a gorgeous little tactic coming up here, actually. So you're warned. You'll probably get a little test. So rook d8 check was played by Hug, king h7, and then rook f8. That's not stupid at all, actually. You're just coming round and attacking that pawn, trying to tie the black pieces to the defense of that, to distract them from the g pawn. But Mariotti played the move rook a g5 anyway, threatening g2, and this actually looks rather scary. I think, you know, you'd really need some excellent calculation here with White, just to be sure that you're not missing anything. There's no immediate threat here, no immediate threat at the moment. But of course, you know, yeah, if you don't do anything, then, well, I don't know what Black can do, but yeah, you know, it's Mariotti, right? He'll come up with something, maybe some distracting ideas on the queen side somehow. So what the engines want is not the move rook f4, which is what Hug played, but queen d4. And the idea of that is to play the move queen d8 and play rook h8, checkmate. Okay, let's start. What attacking move? What attacking move that doesn't work does Black have? And what attacking move would you expect Black to play? Well, Black has two things. The first thing that occurs to you is the move queen takes f3 here, with the idea of takes rook g1 checkmate. Only, well, as that arrow shows, there's a queen that's going to take the rook on g1, so that one doesn't work. But when the queen does move away from d4, then obviously, yeah, you know, that's going to be quite a threat. The main move that you'd think of is the move bishop h3. And, you know, you're putting pressure on g2. You've got, if g takes h3, then queen takes f3. You know, it looks very, very good. But of course, what White has planned is the counterattack queen d8. And yeah, this is actually quite interesting because rook h8 checkmate is threatened. And I mean, you don't want to move this rook on g6, right? Because that's part of your attacking structure. But yeah, if you don't move it, then it's going to be mate. So how can Black... Well, what is Black's best continuation here? It's quite tricky, this one. But again, the good old Matthew adage about Tal's play, that you should either check things or take things, or maybe even both, that definitely, most definitely applies in this position. Such a piece of wisdom, that one. So yeah, I mean, you've got to play checks, you've got to play captures. You know, it's got to be all happening immediately, but it's not easy. Quite easy to see why. I mean, bishop g2 is obvious, of course. So if King G1, well, something like bishop F3 check. You know, I mean, it's going to be total carnage in some way. Maybe bishop H3 check is even stronger, actually. So rook takes G2 is played, and of course rook takes G2 is not check, so that would allow checkmate. But just in case you haven't seen this, what does black have? Yep. It's queen takes H2 check. Ooh, what a nice move. Yeah, if rook H2, then rook G1 is checkmate. And if you play king takes H2, then I go rook G2 check. And you've got to be a little bit careful here with white. King H3, the incautious king H3, allows rook check and rook H2 checkmate. So you've actually got to come back here, and then it's just a draw by perpetual. You can't go up to H3, of course. You've got to go back to H1. So yeah, that was the amazing idea. Queen takes H2. Haven't seen that one, I don't think, before. Not in the real game, anyway. So well done, Mariotti. So that would have been a really nice variation there. But I guess that Hug panicked a little bit, and he played the move rook takes F4. And yeah, I mean, Mariotti played rook takes G2, queen takes G2, rook takes G2. Yeah, got to watch out now for white, because king G2 allows queen G5 check, picking up the rook. So he played rook takes G2. And, you know, I mean, two rooks sometimes can be fine against a queen. But yeah, you know, essentially the rooks have got to be able to coordinate, and your structure's got to be rock solid. I mean, if there's any sort of, if your structure's a bit porous, then, you know, the queen is so good at getting in amongst it. And in particular, if your king's a bit exposed as well, then there's an opportunity for the queen to invade and sort of work in checks at the same time. And of course, you know, the absolute master at doing this is Stockfish. And they've got a whole chapter in Silicon Road to Chess Improvement dedicated to Stockfish's use of the queen. And, well, actually, to be honest, Mariotti is Stockfish-like here, because what he does with the queen in the next few moves is absolutely incredible. I mean, maybe have a look, you know, what is Black's first move here, bearing in mind that comment that I made about the porous white structure. How did Mariotti activate his queen here? Well, the first great move was this move, queen c5. So threatening to come into e3 and then c1. So Hug played rook e2. Fair enough. Stops the queen coming into e3, and you might sort of think, well, you know, I'll maybe get my my pawn going. Who knows? But here Mariotti found a lovely follow-up. Can you find it? The lovely move was the move queen g5. So, you know, you sort of nudge the rook over from the g file, and now you're coming in, and now the queen is going to zoom into c1, and this rook on f4 is caught. Really nice move, this. Lovely manoeuvre, queen c5 to g5. We're going to get a lot more of these manoeuvres. So rook f8 was played, a queen check, king g2, and then Mariotti didn't take on b2. He played the move bishop c4, nudging the rook. And at first sight, this looks a little bit odd, although, I mean, it doesn't ruin anything, right? I mean, if you go rook f2, you can take on b2 still, you know, and that's still looking, yeah, absolutely winning for white, for black, rather. But actually, there's something even better. What was Mariotti aiming for here? It's quite difficult. It's a two-move tactic, geometrical patterns. Now, I worked with the French player Joël Lautier for quite a while. I was his second in the mid-1990s. And yeah, these sort of geometrical snap-snap thingies were one of his big strengths somehow. I thought I was quite matched him quite well for tactics in many respects. But he was definitely better at those than me somehow. So the sequence is, and you'll see how gorgeous it is queen g5 check. The king has to go to the corner, really, because well, obviously the bishop's covering f1. And now can you spot black's move? It's the gorgeous queen c5 again. There's sort of this, I mean, if you look at the black queen maneuver, it's queen c5 to e3 to c1 to g5 to c5. And at the end, you've stretched white's position so much that you're forking 2 rooks. Really gorgeous. Really, really gorgeous there. And the rooks can't cover each other, which is also very nice. Hug actually played king f2 here, which is obviously not particularly what you want. Yeah, but Mariotti didn't even take on b2. The engines would have taken on e2, but but Mariotti didn't. He just liked his bishop and his queen, and well, he's not wrong there, to be honest. So lots of unpleasant things happening here. Hug went rook b8, and Mariotti just started pushing his rook's pawn all the way. So Hug decided, okay, let's move our e pawn down here. Well, yeah, I mean, maybe you can spot the move. Mariotti played a move, a very good move, and Hug resigned straight away. So maybe just it's a snap queenie thing again. Not easy to see, but very nice. Queen h4 check. The king can't go to e2 or f1, so it has to go to d2. And now queen d4 check, and impossible to defend the rook on e3. That pawn on e5 moving has just opened the scope of the queen. I mean, that's why these positions are so hard to play with rooks against a queen in an open position. You know, any move you make just seems to open up lots of things. So there we are. I hope you enjoyed that game. I thought it was really impressive. I liked the opening, and I thought this, the build-up of the attack was really nice, and this queen play was really exceptional from Mariotti. So I hope you're enjoying these re-engineering the chess classics. Got plenty, a few more of those, a few more Mariotti games, and obviously lots of engine stuff too. So do keep tuned, give a like, subscribe if you're enjoying it, tell your friends, and otherwise hope to see you at the next video. Thanks for watching.